Ready? Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Corinne. What is up right now?
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't even know.
It is pandemonium in the world right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Interesting
funny.
times to be living in right now, for sure.
I was listening to Ann Ortley's podcast. Ann Ortley does um, a weekly astrology radio update kind of thing. And yeah, I was listening to it today. Like she does it on Sundays. So today I'm like 3 days behind. But um, just listening to her take on everything, it's just getting more and more interesting, because it's like, it just really brings to mind confirmation bias, like she knows astrology in and out and she sees everything through her own lens, as we all do. It's just so interesting because then it's like, well, I'm listening to her going, well, she's just like, it makes total sense, but she doesn't understand anything that's happening.
Yeah,
She's
like
completely
it
off
makes no
base.
sense for us too, right? Having this whole different perspective of like, yeah,
Yeah.
but you're seeing it from this thing that's just not happening.
Yeah.
But
But it's so
I hear
interesting
you.
how it lines up to both storylines, right? Like you
Yeah,
can make it work.
yeah.
Which is really fascinating because then is there anything that's not confirmation bias? Then I keep thinking like all the people that I'm listening to, aren't these like firsthand sources or like inside intel on stuff? But maybe I don't know. Confirmation bias is just such a funny thing.
I'm so there with you with that, and not just about her, but like with everything. So I'm seeing it in myself, because I'm always analyzing, right? Because my goal is to walk the middle path. So I can even see it in myself, like just where I'm choosing to go for information.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, doing that, knowing I'm going to a lot of right wing places, honestly, because there's not really neutrality. I mean, I'm finding some places that I find are writing neutrally, but they happen to be considered conservative, and I don't really know, like, is this conservative? Because this seems pretty neutral minded to me, like they're not calling anybody names or like bashing anybody, which is basically what mainstream media and most journalists are doing, like the Washington Post, the Hill, Bloomberg, like all of these mainstream news outlets are just bashing people, like straight up, like, calling people names. And it's very interesting to me. So I can't obviously read that stuff, but and then I'm just seeing it. I mean, I've been seeing it this whole year, but well, one perfect example is that when at the beginning of this year, like around April or something like that, I had a conversation with a friend of mine via social media when I was still on there. And I had shared something on social media, and she's self-identified as being liberal, and she's really into identity politics right now, which is interesting because she wasn't when we met. And when we met, she's Filipino, and she actually told me she had never experienced racism because she was from California, and nobody's racist in California. Like, those were her words. And and I was just kind of coming out of the tail end of being entrenched in the identity politics thing. So it was interesting to me, and I remembered that. So we got into this conversation, and she messaged me, and she said, started out the way that the people who think that they're spiritual but are definitely trying to be right do. And she said, I've always respected you, but I have to say, this thing that you posted, da, 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 I fact checked it for you, and it's actually wrong. And it wasn't wrong. Like, it was a study that I sent or shared, and the people who did the study said the study was very clearly in one mindset, and the people who did the study said, well, that's not ever how we intended it to be, it's being used the wrong way. So it's like, well, but you did the study, and the studies are supposed to be neutral, so either you're admitting that you are wanted it to come out a different way, or the study's a good study and it shows something opposite of what you believed, right? And so I basically told her that, and I said, yeah, we all make things true that we want to be true, and if you show me evidence for something that you believe, I can show you 1,000 pieces of evidence that counteract counteract that and that support what I believe. Like that's just how it works. And, I told her that there's also studies done on studies that show that people who actually are doing the study, just their thoughts influence the outcome of the study. And I was like, so, we're having kind of a moot argument. And the point is you can do what you want to do, but I just want to be allowed to live the way I want to live because I'm trying to do what's best for my child. And it came out to be like, she was like, well, I'm just trying to do what's best for my child. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So why are you attacking me right now? And I actually just had this really great conversation. We bought a truck today and there was a guy at the auto store or the car dealership who I was talking to him and he said, I don't know where I was going with that. What was I talking about? I
The
don't know. Anyway,
studies.
we were just talking about that same thing of like how people just want to be right and they're arguing, but when we can all agree that we want the world to be better, right? But like, oh, this is what it was. But what, like, for example, her thing of what was right, which is basically communism, is going to impede me from doing what I think is right and from living my life. But my version of what's right, which is everybody just gets to live as they want to live and be free, actually helps her to live the way that she wants to live, right? So there's one side that's not one side that's freedom and one side that's not, that you have to live the way that people want you to live. And so it was interesting having that conversation with a guy at the dealership, just some, normal dude having the same conversation. But it's that thing of, that's so much of what I'm seeing. It's like, yeah, I see that we both really ideally we want the same thing. We don't want there to be hate in the world. We don't want people to be attacking each other. But the way that you're going about it is basically censoring everybody so that nobody can think for themselves and assuming that the people who are in charge have the moral compass that we should all follow. And the way that I'm going about it is that I have the moral compass and you have the moral compass and all these other people have the moral compass, and we just need to be allowed to use our own moral compass. And then, obviously that goes with let's raise better children, and like, let's just create better humans. Instead of you telling me how to do things, just trust that I'm going to do the best I can to create a better human. So it's interesting time for sure. Very, very strange. And I also want to point out that all those people when I was younger saying that I was a conspiracy theorist, well, all my theories are coming true. So like, this is, they're real things now. So
Yeah, I really appreciate your differentiating that it's, we all want the same thing, but the way we're going about it has two different outcomes basically. And because it's I guess this is probably like part of my journey through all of this is, one aspect of my deprogramming or deconditioning or whatever healing it is that I'm doing is trusting myself, coming to trust myself and trust what I know. And so many of the things that have come up through the course of the last 9 months have just affirmed those, like the hair on the back of my neck kind of thing, like that um, the spidey sense, the sixth sense, the knowing, that subtle sense that something is off, that doesn't make sense, whatever all those things, they're all being validated. Um, and so there's this like um, what is it? Vindicated part of me that wants to be like, see, I was right. I wasn't
told you
crazy.
so.
Yeah. But at the same time, recognizing this right wrong thing is really interesting, because recognizing that um, that jumping back into that saddle of right wrong isn't going to help anybody. But what if I know I'm right and I was always right? Or it's not even about being right, it's just seeing what's actually happening. But the way that the storylines are being twisted, it's to undermine that knowing. And so then you question, it's so subversive, it's so amazing. I mean, it's like really amazing and impressive, but it's so sick and twisted and subversive.
Yeah.
um how effective it is. It just like needling its way in there and saying, well, no, because now see, you're doing the thing where you're saying you're right and I'm wrong, and that's not what we want, you know. It's like, but no, I'm actually just recognizing what's happening.
What's happening objectively. Yeah. And here's the thing, Corinne,
Yeah.
this is an abusive situation. This is an
Mm-hmm.
abuser. These are abuser tactics. And I was telling my man this the other day, that he was saying all these things, and I was like, yeah. And you know how I know what they're doing? You know how I can identify that the Democrats are throwing a coup, and that everything that they're saying Donald Trump is doing, that they're actually doing, like inciting violence? How I know that they're doing that is because it's the exact same strategy that every abusive man I have ever met has used, period. It's the exact same strategy. And I was in the battered women's movement for a long time. And I have seen countless stories. I've talked with hundreds, if not thousands, of women in the domestic violence shelter, and trained women how to fight men who are abusing them. And every single one of them, 100% of the time, this is the core strategy of the abuser. They take what they are doing and they make you believe that you are doing it. So if they
Mm-hmm.
accuse you of cheating, you better believe that they are cheating on you. If they accuse you of stealing money from the bank account, you better believe they're stealing money from the bank account. If they accuse you of inciting violence and starting a war, you better believe that they're the ones who are doing it, period. Like, it is 100% factual every single time. I have seen it too many times. I know every woman out there who's listening, who's ever been in an abusive relationship, will say hell yeah to that, because it's the flat out truth, period. And like, I am so glad that I had all that training, because I'm seeing it for what it is, and it's on such a mass scale. And I keep wanting to go to this thing of like, my thing that I go into is, well, fuck all y'all, because you're idiots for letting this go on. Like, if you think that I'm crazy because I'm talking about this, you're an idiot, and you can go fend for yourself. And it's every person for themselves at this point, like, I'm jumping off this sinking ship. But at the same time, like, that's obviously me, like my attitude or whatever. But when I can connect with God, when I can connect with my soul, I just hope, that other people are seeing this too. And I think that other people are, that we're just not being shown the people who are.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a nice validation for me to go to the car dealership and to see
Mm.
the guy at the car dealership. He was saying the same things of like, he was like, I voted for Trump. And so when I went 4 years ago or whatever, and I voted for Trump, and I started, well, maybe I'll start going hang out with these conservative people. And he's like, yeah, Trump, Trump, Trump. And then they were like, yeah, and fuck them Jews and fuck them inward, all that stuff. He's like, oh, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm just talking about freedom. So, you do get into the
Mm.
really, like, what conservative people, like the old school conservative people are.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are racist. And the same way you get into the liberals, and it's like, you think that this is like progressive thinking, that people who want to be free, but it's actually people who want control, people who want everybody to have, the exact same of everything, and to have no diversity. And they're the ones preaching about diversity. So it's like, you get into these, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, where do I go? And I'm like, I'm there with you, because I'm not hanging out with anybody else who supported Trump, like voted for Trump. I'm not hanging out with any of those people. And I'm definitely not hanging out with any more liberals anymore. Like, because this is the time for the middle path. You can't be. And I think that this is what surprises people, that that Trump won, is that he was the outside of the system. Everybody was tired of the system, and he was the only option outside of the system. So you got a lot of people like me who are, normal, happy, loving, spiritual people who, like, I mean, I didn't vote for him, but but people like me did vote for him. And you get these people, and it's like, people don't believe, or like all the Hispanics voted for him, and they're like, how he's like building a wall in Mexico. Like, how are you voting him? Because they are in alignment with the core values of, like, freedom, like conservatism in a lot of the core ways. There's all of these similarities, and he's the only other option, like, there's no better option, right, at this point in time. And yeah, so it's just really interesting where this is at, and it's rapidly devolving, like rapidly devolving. And I'm just like, I mean, everybody's losing their minds. And like the conservative people who are all, thinking that Trump is like the savior from God. He's like the resurrection of Christ. Like, these people are totally losing their fucking mind. And then all the libertarian or liberals who are thinking, like saying what they're saying, like they're losing their damn mind. So I'm like, Okay, I'm going to make this meme of like me backing in. And the guy I was talking to today told me it was Homer Simpson. There was like a Simpsons episode where Homer's like slowly backing into the bush and like letting all this stuff happen in front of him. I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm just going to disappear while everybody out there does what they're going to do. And then when everything calms down, I'll come back out. But yeah, I can't. It's a very bizarre world, even though I'm prepared for it. I've been working my whole life to be prepared for this. I was, told that this was going to happen from a very young age, and it's happening. And I'm just like, okay, I really never believed that it was going to happen, I guess, but here it is.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I think there's got to be, I can't be the only one experiencing this. There's got to be some level of cognitive dissonance, even for the people who are like so excited and on board with what's happening, like with the
Oh
big
yeah.
changes that are coming, because I spent my entire life feeling um like nothing made sense. Nothing at all made sense. I didn't want to be a part of any of the systems. I didn't just so many pieces of like just the way the world worked. It was like, I don't want to do any of this. I don't like any of this. I want nothing to do with any of this. Can't we just like make this easier? Can't we make this simpler? Can't this be better? Um, and I mean, who knows how things will come out in the wash, but there's sort of this, I guess it's surreal in a way, this like slow, like simultaneously so much has changed in the last year. So much is changing minute to minute right now, but it's still this like slow mo kind of unfolding of um it's sort of like a it's like when you're in a in your car next to another car and one starts moving and it looks like one's going backward,
Backwards. Yeah.
whichever one it is, and it's like you can't tell if you're going forwards or backwards. And I sort of feel that like, yeah, we're doing it. Wait, is this really happening? What is happening? Is the world actually going to become what we all want it to be? Is life actually going to be what we all hope it could be? Is this actually real, that all of this stuff is why everything has sucked? And so now it's just going to be radically transformed. Like we figured out the problem. Like, is that actually happening in this lifetime, in my lifetime as an adult, where I get to be like aware of what's happening? It's just um, a mind fuck, I guess,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
For sure,
And
because
all
it's
the,
also unknown. Like it could
yeah,
go either way at this point. Like it could go either way. I mean,
yeah,
I want to believe, I mean, I'm really working hard to like be in alignment with God and like believe that this is all gonna turn out for the best. But every day I'm like, come on, you got to show me some proof. You got to show me some
yeah,
proof that this is all in perfect alignment. And today, like the truck thing was proof, because it was this whole situation where things were just weird. And I was like, I'm just going to go with my instincts, but I am not making an emotional decision. I'm not buying a truck with my emotional center, because that is like, it doesn't work, is what I told myself, which when I thought back, that's not actually true. It always works out. But, I thought,
just kind of the easeful, most efficient way to do it.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna analyze all of these things and see what's the best option. And I'm gonna like see also what feels best at the same time. Like I'm gonna use all of my centers. And it all worked out perfectly, and it's the perfect vehicle, and it's all good. So that was, even though it's a material thing, that was a confirmation for me. Okay. Like, because I just said, all right, God, like this is what I want. I want the best truck. I want pretty much exactly what I had, but I want it to be newer, less mileage, all this stuff or whatever. And I want it to be no rust. Right. And so we got that whole thing. And so it just worked out. And I just keep every day, I'm just like, you got to show me today. I got to see something
Mm-hmm.
that says like that this is like the way it should be, so that I can trust, because I'm still tentatively trusting, like trust is the hard thing for me. And yeah, it's just really interesting how it's unfolding. And then, this whole thing with China happening, that's happening in the background. And like, I'm looking at all these news things that are being shown to me. But what I'm really looking for is like governmental documents. Like, how can I really see what's going on? Like, how can I interpret for myself? So I've been going to the White House's website, and there's a lot of interesting executive orders that have been happening since the 1st of January, especially after the 5th, like a lot to do with the Chinese government and intelligence, and them basically stealing data, and a lot of things that make that like not okay anymore. And that says like basically we can go in and shut stuff down. There's a lot of ships out in the sea that are lining up, and like on the military websites, they're like, yeah, we're just stationing for the future in the South Pacific. Like, there's a lot of stuff happening that I'm just like, okay, like how, and then knowing that the incoming administration is very pro China, that their tactics are very communistic. I'm thinking, how is this going to play out? Like, I don't think they're going to war with China. I can see Trump going to war with China, but I'm just, so I don't really know. And it's, yeah, I'm trying to trust that it's all going to be for the better. And also, I'm like, I totally used to think that communism was the way. And once I really saw how communism plays out or socialism plays out, it never plays out very well because, like look at Nazi Germany. That was like socialism that didn't really go so well for some people. And, China, the whole communist thing there is really weird. And so I'm just, yeah, I'm not about a man having total control, or a woman at this point, but anybody having total control over everything. And but I want to trust that it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. But I'm like, all these people who are the Q people, I'm like, okay, I don't think that you all like, they're like, this is God's plan, it's Trump's plan. I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, but yeah. So I'm not really down with their plan, what they think is going to happen, but I am down with God's plan, whatever that might be. And I just know that I got to be, I just got to be ready to rise to the occasion, whatever happens. And I'm not against moving to Mexico or some third world country that, where nothing is happening. People are just living their lives. So,
Are there actually places where that's happening?
I mean, they're small. I mean, the thing is, yeah, there are places where that's happening, but they are few and far between, and they're being encroached upon. So it's gonna, like, that's what I've been telling, Sam, that like it's eventually, it doesn't matter where you go. And when we were
Yeah.
looking at moving to Ecuador, we were going to be like in the Andes, and it was, just indigenous people there, and it was totally cool how it worked. But you go to the cities, and they're westernizing rapidly. And yeah, so it's happening. I feel like I called it a virus that was everywhere, and it's happening everywhere. And there's that saying, I don't know if it was Gandhi or who it was, but the saying, or I don't think it was Gandhi. I don't know who it was, but it was like, first they came for the Jews, and then they came for these people, and then they came for these people, and I did nothing. And then they came for me, and there was nobody left to help me, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about that saying all the time. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And, they're coming for all of us. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
Well, one of the things that has come up so many times from, I guess it's a spiritual person's way, spiritual person, as if any of us are not spiritual. I mean, we're all spiritual beings.
Yeah.
But people who are like actively pursuing that path, I guess, is the idea of timelines, and how we are all, it's really, this is another mind warp thing that I keep playing with, but that we are all at choice, right? And we all have the ability to choose whatever timeline we want to be on. Or choose whatever timeline that we see happening and just align with that, so oh my God, my mind just explodes if I start thinking about this stuff too much, because on the one hand, there's like there's the 3D realm, there's all the quote unquote conspiracy stuff that's been a part of the last 9 months, and and it's all very, there's evidence, like we were talking about, there's proof, there's eyewitnesses, there's, firsthand experiences, there's all that stuff. So you can't say it doesn't exist. And you could, in theory, choose a completely different timeline to live in. Um, I don't know. I don't remember if I was talking to you about this. I don't know if this happened before the last episode we did, but I had posted this article on my Facebook page, and it's called "The Sacred Left and Sacred Right" or something. Did we talk about that? I don't
Mm-mm.
remember.
No.
So it was just this really interesting, like I felt like well thought out, very um, like a Charles Eisenstein type of
Mm-hmm.
article. It's like I'm just going to look at the whole thing. I'm not going to take sides. I'm not casting judgments. I'm just like, let's look at this. Let's talk about all the different aspects of this. Um, and so it was just exploring, what like the low vibe left is, and what the low vibe right is, and what the high vibe left and high vibe right, and kind of what the world could look like played out in different scenarios. And I just thought it was really interesting and a good read to get people thinking about things. And so I posted it. And the only response I got was from, this is, of course, the only responses I ever get to my posts are from people who I either, peripherally know, or people who I knew like 10 or 15 years ago who I haven't talked to in a decade. Who feel inclined, for whatever reason, I pop up on their newsfeed and they feel inclined to offer a response and give me their 2 cents. Always with something like, "Hey, it's been a while, blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
But anyway, so this girl wrote back, or she responded to it. And I think she's a doctor. I think she was in medical school when I knew her. But, um, and, her experience is completely COVID. It's completely like, for the love of God, please just, like, these aren't lies. Like, this is happening. Please stop, like, throwing us under the bus, basically.
Yeah.
And it was just, seemed like an odd article to write that about. But um, it just, it was like, okay, I'm not disputing your reality at all. And, you made a choice to be a doctor in the mainstream medical system. So you're going to live out a completely different life experience.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think what's really blowing my mind is there's like, who knows how many billions of people on the planet? Because, one of the things that I'm learning through all of this is that nobody actually knows anything. None of those scientific fact numbers about anything that we were ever told is actually anything. So anyway, however many billions of people there are. And each one of those people, we all create a different reality. So
Yeah.
there's actually no one cohesive reality. But if enough people get together and they decide that they're going to create one reality, the shared vision, shared purpose, whatever. So like looking at Trump as, the savior of humankind, which there's a huge movement behind him that sees that he is. And, with all the various executive orders, various intentions and proclaimed missions that he's had, indicate that there are a lot of things that he's doing that are, they're real experiences, real people having these real horrific experiences, that he's trying to end all this stuff. I don't mean to be vague. I just really don't want to say I don't want to like talk about it heavily on this, but so like that all exists and it is real, and maybe he is saving humanity, and maybe it's not him, but he's the leader of the movement. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So there is that real timeline, and how can I totally believe it, totally support it, and then live another completely different timeline, or say, well, actually, I'm also just going to choose this? Like, how do I not negate that whole thing by living my own timeline, which is the whole I guess it's the whole thing, maybe saying of the Democrats. It's hard to say that because it is the Democrats, but it's also not the
It's
Democrats.
not,
It's,
it's everybody. It's the whole
yeah,
thing. It's
it's
all of them.
that side that happens to be represented by these big named Democrat people.
Right.
Um, that's the whole thing again, right? Like, you don't get to live your truth because it negates my truth.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you can actually just have a million bajillion truths side by side and they're all true. I remember I was living with a I was in a relationship with a guy. We were all living together in this big group house, and then we broke up, and then we all continued to live in the house for the next year. And in that time, I met somebody else and had this sort of weird experience because I totally loved my ex-boyfriend. Like, I just loved him, you know, but I was totally not in love and didn't want to be in a relationship with him, and was very interested in this other person. And for maybe the only time in my life up to that point, I experienced this awareness that I could simultaneously love both of these people, and not, the love for one had nothing to do with the love for the
Yeah.
other, and they were different loves, and it was different people and different relationships, and being able to hold that was super powerful. But he totally could not hold that.
Yeah.
He was like, no, I don't know. He's like, he's replacing me. There's no way that you can, I don't get it, you know? But that's how we live. Like, we've been
It's
taught,
either or.
right. We've been taught very limited ideas of what reality is and what love is, which is, of course, so apropos here, because that's what all this is about, right? This is about love. Like, I loved this, that Trump comes out on stage and he's like, this is about love. I'm like, when have we ever heard any political leader say that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't listen to a lot of speeches, but I don't get the sense that that's like the thing that they're
No,
saying.
definitely not.
So just, it's like, right, it is about love. Like, it's all about love, but we've just had such skewed visions of what love is.
Yeah.
Love, like you're saying, like, it's my truth and your truth, and we both get to live it, and that's great. So yeah, it's just,
Not even really though, like, it's your reality and my reality, not really even truth. Because for me, I used to do that whole thing of like, well, that's your truth, whatever. And I really started to get really annoyed with people who would say that, well, yeah, that's your truth and you can live that, but that's not what I believe. Because honestly, when you really get far enough down the spiritual path, you start to realize there is actually only one truth. Period. There's only one absolute truth. And if you haven't found that one absolute truth, then you don't actually have a truth. Like, it's just your perspective. Like, it's your ego and it's your perspective, and it's all bullshit. So mine included in that, I'm not like dogging on other people. I definitely have this in myself too. But I also am far enough down the path where I've been taught by people who are way wiser than me that there is actually only one truth. And I believe that, and I can see that. I can see just glimpses of that. And yeah, like the same thing, like when we're talking about the realities, like I've been thinking about this with police officers, and, like, I don't like cops. I just don't. I've never met one that I liked. They're all assholes. But I can also hold at the same time that, like, they have chosen to live a life that puts them in the line of trauma every single day in their life. They see fucked up people every single day of their life. They see traumatized people, sick people. They see people beating the crap out of each other. They see people killing each other. Like, what kind of consciousness are you going to have if that's what you see every day of your life? How do you go home to your kid, like my tiny little baby child, and be sweet to her when you see like people murdering children every day? Like, how do you live that? Like, that's why they're the way that they are, right? So like, we can't really, we have to be able to see that, yeah, like, I don't like cops, but I understand why cops are the way that they are, and I also appreciate that there are people out there who choose to live that life to, in theory, protect me. I don't know, like, I've definitely never felt protected by a cop. I've only ever been, on the other end of that. But that's not, I know that that's my experience, and that's not every experience. I know people who've been protected by police officers. So I know there are people who out there who do that job and do it well. But but when you take on that mindset, the same thing with your friend or who you're talking about, that was a doctor, you're in that line, you can't actually, you can't believe something that is counter to your entire life. You know, like you can never take on another belief, even just like from a spiritual perspective. You can't take on another belief in your mind if you already have a belief in place that says, I'm never going to be thin. I'm always going to be fat. Or I'm a bad person. I'm never going to be good. Like you can't ever tell yourself that you're a good person. You can't tell yourself that enough to make yourself believe it until you've uncovered the belief that says that you're a bad person or that you're disgusting or whatever. And, you know, exhume that and then replace it with something else. And it's really hard to do that. Like it's really hard to do that. I know you and I both know that. Just like that's why nobody succeeds at affirmations, because it's not, it really isn't possible in a lot of ways. Like it's really, for a lot of people, it's really hard to do. And you know, there are workarounds to that. But yeah, so you take on this identity or this consciousness, and you can't go against that. So you know, I'm just trying to be my consciousness to be God, so that I'm not involved in any of it, you know. Like it just is crazy making, and it doesn't do any good. But it is interesting right now that things are as escalated as they are. And you know, it's hard to not get caught up in that this is the reality. Like this is the world that we live in right now. It's really hard to not get caught up in that and to believe that you could have another option. And, you know, it's hard for me, even though I live a different lifestyle, you know, and our life is pretty minimally impacted until I get on the internet and start looking at things. But like, it's still hard for me to believe that this is not, like, I had this thing the other day. You know, I don't really go out right now because I don't want to like go into a business and have to have a confrontation, because I'm not going to wear a mask, period. Like I'm not going to do it. And so I don't want to go in there and make somebody have to be that person that's confrontational, you know? And I went out a couple weeks ago with my sister-in-law, and we went to a grocery store, and we didn't wear masks, and we just went in and grabbed some stuff or whatever. And, somebody came to us and said, hey, here's some masks, you know, this is the governor's order. And luckily we were on our way out. So I was just like, oh, we're on our way out. And I just like skimmed past her and totally ignored her. But it really did, when I walked out, I really was a little bit like shaken, because it's that thing of like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble, you know? And I hate that. Like, I hate even getting into that mindset, because like, who's going to get on to me? Like, call the cops. Like, I don't care. They want to arrest me and put my kid in a freaking, you know, like children's home because I don't want to cover my breathing apparatus, like breathing orifice or whatever. It's totally stupid. But, you know, there was that thing. And so I came back and I was talking to my partner about it, and, we were going to go look at a car a couple days ago, and this thing, it started coming up, and I was like, I don't know. So I was like getting my resources ready and printing off all these documents about how it's illegal and all, you know, I had my pamphlets. I was like ready for warfare. And we were talking about it, and he's like, you know, I feel like that having this vision that this could possibly happen is actually creating a prison for us. And I don't want to live in a prison. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like I have been putting myself in prison since the 2 weeks ago when that thing happened at the grocery store. I've really been feeling like I just can't go out and then I've been going out to look at cars. We've been going to all these car dealerships, and nobody says shit. Like nobody cares. Nobody's wearing a mask. Like it's fine. And then people who come in want to wear a mask, they do. And if they want to put one on, the people give them one. And it's fine. And I mean, granted, that's where I'm at in this world, like my physical location, that it's that way. And for some people it's not that way, but, you know, so I was putting myself in a prison, and because I didn't want to get in trouble or have a confrontation or something like that. And mostly because I'm afraid for what would happen to my child. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting just navigating that whole thing. And now I'm just to the point where I'm just not going to do it. And you want to tell me, I bet you I can run faster carrying this baby than you can run, you know, and like, I'm not going to do it. And if you want to call the cops, go right ahead. And, you know, that's fine, but I'll be gone before they get here. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm just not willing to be a prisoner. And I also know that if people don't see me out without a mask on, then I'm helping the problem. I'm helping create the situation where people believe that everybody's wearing a mask and that like nobody knows what a smile looks like, like I'm not.
Yeah.
And what actually happens, and we have seen this whole year over and over, when you don't do it and you go out, people will come to you and they'll take their mask off because they feel liberated to do that. Like that was what was
Yeah.
happening to us at the market. We got like double the business, like double the traffic coming into our market booth, and the people would come in and they take their mask off. And like it was like they were feeling comfortable. And I thought, what a great thing that we can provide this little nest of like safety for people to come in and be able to be themselves. And yeah, so that's my civil disobedience.
Oh, I feel that. I totally hear you. I had a similar experience. Well, sort of a similar experience a few weeks ago at the hardware store here, which up until the most recent, I think the most recent executive order, I've stopped keeping track. They're just, what's the point? It's basically like, just assume whatever freedoms you still have are no longer there.
Yeah.
Yeah, up until that one, there were still some like wiggle room around the mask, I guess. And then that one was like, if you leave your house, you have to wear a mask. And so I went into this hardware store where, pretty much hardware stores were like, okay, you could go to a hardware store because the people who go to hardware stores are going to be a little bit less likely to just bow down to the authorities. And we were shopping. Initially I had been shopping and just walking with bold confidence through, but I had a sense that last time I went, I was like, we just like need to get in and get out before they tell us that we can't be here because I need toilet paper.
Yeah.
Or, whatever else. So, yeah, so I had my arms full of toilet paper and I don't even know what else. It was mostly toilet paper. I totally did the thing. And I looked down the aisle and there was a woman and a man standing there and I was like, shit. I could just tell because she turned and she said something to him. And
yeah.
And next thing, of course, he walks over with a box of masks in his hand. And he's like, can I offer you a cart and a mask? I was like, well, I'll take the cart, but I'll pass on the mask. Thanks. And he's like, well, we went through this whole thing about the governor and he'd had cops in there twice already because customers had called cops on other customers not wearing masks. And I was like, cool. And he was awesome. He was totally like, I support you 100%, but I don't want to get shut down. So next time you come, like, wear a mask. You can have a hole in it. I don't care. Just wear a mask. And yeah, so it was like, I kind of spent that day. It was like my last run out to do errands and get like the last supplies that I needed. And I was like, well, we're just going to do a little experiment here and just go to all these different hardware stores and different whatever other stores and just see what I can get away with,
I love it.
Partly because of what you're saying, that thing, like, I'm going to get in trouble. And really what it is in those situations, it's the concern that I'm not, because I really sat with it afterwards because it was like, so I went in there, had that situation and we're like, okay, I'll go to the other hardware store. So we went to the other hardware store. Those people, I sort of get the feeling from some of them that they're like not pleased that I'm in there without a mask, but they're not going to say anything,
right?
Which is something.
Yeah.
Nobody said it. They've had a sign out front the whole time, but nobody's ever said anything to me. And some of the people who work there are like, they're just cool and they're chatty and they're great and they're super friendly and they love my daughter. And, they'll like stand and have a conversation, not like trying to get me out the door because I'm not wearing a mask, but they'll actually talk to us, So, so that was cool. And then we went down to this other store and the woman was like, it's a clothing store. And she's like, can I run and get something for you? I'm like, who like, just, fortunately fortunately I was going there for socks for my kids. So I was like, yeah, just go get some of these socks. So I stood at the doorway basically, and she did my transaction there. But so it was just, I was sort of playing around with it, went to all these different places and really was trying to see where I could go, to see what the vibe was, and to then sit with that whole thing of like, why am I so nervous? Like, why am I so freaked out about this? Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. I never liked getting in trouble, but what difference does it actually make? And one of the things is it's about getting needs met, right? Like I'm I don't want to get kicked out because I need toilet paper or I need whatever the thing is that I'm in here to buy.
Right.
But I'm not consciously aware of it when I go in. It's like this feeling like I have to get in and out before they see me.
Yeah, like you
But
have to hide. Like you're just like
yeah,
sleuthing around like a fucking criminal.
right. Well, but it's the thing that I have to get in and out before they see me without really consciously being aware of like, it doesn't make a difference if I can't buy this stupid stuff here. Like, so what? You know, I can either buy it somewhere else or I can order it online or I'll live without it. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a do or die situation. Like, I don't need to be like all sweaty and cold sweats and nervous, like walking into this place or walking out and like shaking, you know? So,
Yeah.
really, I mean, it's so helpful in a way for all of that bullshit programming that we've all been given of, you know, that your worth is equated to all these different things, and you got to toe the line or you're going to be rejected, or you're going to be cast out, you're going to be kicked out of the store and you can't get your needs met, you're going to be kicked out of the group and you can't get your needs met, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
So
right.
it's
Yeah.
so but really, like, really though, we're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, like you and me, I mean, some people it's
Are not.
much worse situations,
Right.
but like for me going into a hardware store, if I can't buy toilet paper there, so what? There's Amish who live 30 minutes from here. I'll just go buy the toilet paper from them, or I'll
Man,
do
you know
the
what I did? I
I
gave
know.
up toilet paper and
I
I
know.
bought organic butt cloth. Like this is the best experience ever.
I
But the
know. I
other
thought
thing,
about doing that, but
yeah,
yeah.
it's just, yeah, it is the thing of like just that feeling. And I actually, before we went to the car dealership and I thought this whole thing was going to happen that didn't actually happen. um I thought somebody I had ordered, I think it was this sweater or something, I'd ordered it and they sent me a mask like for free with it, which totally pissed me off because I
And
was
he
like,
burned it.
now I have an official one. What I kept it because I thought you never know, but it's all wrapped up and whatever. But it's just a black mask, and I thought about just embroidering God on it. At first, I thought about embroidering like a big middle finger, which is what I really wanted to do. But then I thought, wouldn't it be more effective if I just embroidered God on it, and then people would really have to think about that. They're like muzzling God. And so that was my next thing or whatever. But yeah, like I just got to this place where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be so blasé when I walk in there. If they say something, I'm going to say, good, call the cops, good, do whatever you got to do. Because, Sam, he went to the hardware store and the guy was like, they finally started doing it here of like enforcing it because, the governor's done the thing of like making people call on each other, and people
Yeah.
are actually going to lose their jobs. And I don't want that, which is
Yeah.
another reason I haven't been going out. Like, I don't want to make
Right.
small
It's come
businesses
to
close
that. Yeah.
down. But what I'm realizing, because I'm looking at the statistics of how many they're actually visiting and like who's getting shut down, is like not very many of them are getting shut down. Like one, I think, has been shut down, one business in the state. But when he went in there, this guy came and was like, you have to wear a mask. And he's like, no, I'm just not going to do that. I don't support tyranny. And the guy was like, I don't either. I'm a Vietnam vet, and it was this whole thing or whatever. But Sam was like, well, the guy was like, I can call the cops for trespassing. He's like, well, you can't legally charge me for trespassing because this is a public business, but you do what you got to do. And I'm going to keep shopping and I'll be out of here in a few minutes. I'm almost done anyway. And like, I wouldn't have not had the courage to do that at that moment. I would have freaked out, but I thought, I'm totally like, this is what we can all learn from white men. It's just like, just do it and like say, call their bluff. Like, this is like a business thing. This is what like Trump is all about. Like, he calls everybody's bluff, he's just like, yeah, do it. He's a businessman. So I'm just going to think about things that way and be like, yeah, well, go ahead and do it. And so that's my new stance. I'm just going to start pushing that. But we've been seeing more and more people out when we go out that aren't. And, I just think that people in general are getting tired of it, and people are getting tired of not being able to breathe. And now that this whole thing with the censorship with all the big platforms is happening, like, it's like first they took away our air and now they're taking away our voices. Like, we can't actually speak. And so I mean, I know that this is how the Nazis and how every other regime has done this thing, is that they take away slow liberty, slowly, slowly, slowly. And they say, but you'll get it back. And then it never happens. I knew that was going to happen at the beginning of this. And I kept
Yeah.
telling people and nobody wanted to listen. It's like, all right, whatever. Like all the spy shit that George Bush put in place and said, it's only because for now, while we're in this state of emergency, none of that is gone. It's all here and worse. And so I knew that this was going to happen. And so, I'm just not going to comply. And, if I don't end up making it out alive, well, good riddance, because this place is really sucking right now. And I mean, if I had hopes that it was going to be better, that's one, I do have some hope that maybe things are going to change, but I also don't really have hope that things are going to be much better for a long time. And I used to have this goal of living to be 120, and now I'm like, as soon as my kid's raised, like, get me out of here. Like, let me just like fall asleep and never wake up. It's terrible to feel that way, but honestly, I'm like, yeah, this place really sucks, and I don't really see. Yeah, I just, people are so stupid. People are so stupid, and just, it's hard to see the majority of people around you. Like, we were talking about this the other day, and Sam said this. He said, I feel like I'm officially in enemy territory and everything feels unsafe. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel like. I feel like I'm behind the wall of like communist
Wow.
China, and I'm in enemy territory, and I could never, even I was having this conversation
Mm.
with the guy at the car dealership today, and he's like saying all this stuff that I'm just like, okay, are you baiting me to like try to get me to talk about like guns or like something crazy? Like, are you like recording? And he has like an iPhone watch, and I'm like, that thing's
Ugh.
recording us. So I'm not saying anything incriminating, but it took, like, I didn't trust him. And, we did have a great conversation or whatever. And I think he was legit, but I didn't trust him. So I was very conscious of what I could say, because there's recording devices around, and
Everywhere you go.
everywhere. And I don't like that.
We're
And
speaking on one right now.
I know, yeah, but I mean, that's the thing too, is that, um, when all the Capitol Hill thing happened, like, they came out on the news and were like, through the facial recognition software, we've been able to identify da 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 da. And I'm just like, communist China, this is exactly what they have. They have facial recognition stuff everywhere, and it's everywhere here. And we'd like to believe that it's not true. Oh, it's just a security camera. It just goes to their laptop. It's like, no, it's like, no. And your face is on there. And when I got into my car wreck and the cop pulled up my name, and it's like, he pulls up all this information. I've never been in trouble. I am like, you can't find anything about me on the internet. And he pulls up all this information about me. And I was like, And he didn't have my correct driver's license or anything. Like, my address was not on there. And I just gave him my name, and he just pulled up so much stuff about my life. I was like, well, officially totally freaked out.
Mm. Well, this really brings up the timeline thing again, because I feel like this is what I navigate on a regular basis, because talking to people who are more interactive with knowing like what's happening with the censorship, understanding the news, understanding what's happening in the world, and what Trump and his people are doing, and just all of that, like, real stuff that's happening. The surveillance is real, the censorship is real, the all of this is real. And it's that question of, like, when you were preparing for going out to the car dealers and getting all your information ready, like, that's what you're gonna, like, that being a prison for you, because that is what you're gonna attract, right? And not to be like a law of attraction or whatever. It's not what I mean, it just is a matter of your, like seeks like, energy resonates with energy.
Yeah.
And so that's where I keep putting my focus, but sort of flow in and out of feeling a little bit lost, and then like, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to create my reality here. And for the most part, I feel like if I just really am living my life and making my choices, I really am creating a certain kind of resonance and reality for myself. But then having the awareness that when I leave that safe protective bubble or whatever you want to call it that I've created for myself, I'm encountering different energy. And my teacher just helped me by reflecting back that I think I'm way more empathic than I realize. I was always super, super sensitive as a kid, but I really got I hardened myself off as much as I
Mm-hmm.
could, I guess. And never had any tools to understand all of the feelings and all that. So I haven't really realized the extent to which I'm really feeling all of the energies all around me all the time. Um, and so having that awareness now is helpful to know going out into the world, like, um, I'm not going to choose to align with that. I guess I'm going to just choose to align with my vision of things. Like, I've started praying and visualizing before I leave my house. Like, I create a protective bubble around my car, and I just, lay out my path, and it's just like, I got to hold myself in this container of my own energetic field and not allow those fears and anxieties and whatever to come in and guide and steer the ship, basically.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, for the listeners, we've been reading this, the winter, what's it called?
The Winter Witch book series,
Winter
I
Witch
think is what it's called. Yeah,
series.
by
Yeah.
Katherine Arden.
And there's this demon character called the bear, and it's the whole thing with him is that he feeds on people's fear and chaos.
Yep.
And so I was just thinking about that today, and I was like, okay, so I'm just not going to feed the bear. Like, that's all
Yeah.
it is. I don't need to go in to that fear space because he's drawing it out of me. Like, society, the government, the whatever, the whole thing that's happening right now, it's not just it's not like it's inflicting fear as much as it's like drawing it out. It's like sucking it out of you to feed on it, and
Yeah.
it's like, wow, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just gonna, like, it's not like a way to differentiate, say it's not my fear.
Yeah.
It's some food that they're like trying to grow inside of me,
Yeah.
and I don't want it to grow here, so I'm not gonna have fertile soil for it.
Yeah. That's something I got from that book series too, but mostly with like the up here, and when it goes through that whole section or whatever where it's talking about like these basically people eating
Zombies.
demons and zombies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's talking about that, and I had all these visualizations about that and realizing the fear. But the thing for me is that fear is a tricky thing for me because I'm not fearful in the way that most people are fearful. I'm very courageous, and I'm like, I've stood up against perpetrators, and I'm really like tough in that way. But how fear gets me is how it gets me is in preparation, over preparation. So I will have I'll have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and F, all the way through the alphabet. I have contingency plans for everything. I have a contingency plan right now for my life in case my partner dies. I have a contingency plan right now in my life in case my daughter dies. I have a contingency plan right now in case I die. I have a contingency plan in case our house burns down. I have so many contingency plans about what my life is going to look like if one of these situations happens. And so that is, that's not like fear like people out in the world are seeing, that's like what we see most of the time. That's a different kind of fear, and it's it's pretty neurotic, like the over preparation or whatever. And it's useful for sure, and it makes me feel secure and safe, but it also it's a fear that feeds that that feeds that whole thing, right? Which the fear of me getting in trouble. And so I've got to be prepared in case I get in trouble, like whatever. So yeah, the fear is an interesting thing. And it is, yeah, Medved. I think about that all the time in life. I'm like, yeah, this is Medved. Like, this is what that whole book series was about, is this time in life right
I
now.
know, it's so crazy.
It is insane.
Gosh,
how it is. Yeah. It's really good. It's
yeah,
really
we highly
good.
recommend this book series.
Yeah. The Winter Witch by Katherine Arden. You got to read it.
I mean, it really is. It's like the perfect book series to be reading right now. I just wanted to put out there because I know that this isn't going to come out like today. So it's the new moon, the day of the new moon. It happened like last night at early in the morning at Eastern time, January
13th.
13th.
Yeah.
So just as a context for
Yes.
where we are in this whole
Yeah.
crazy thing.
I do
But it
think
is
I'm
like the
gonna
perfect.
It
Oh,
is.
sorry.
I do think I'm going to release this episode before I release the one we did last month, just
Okay.
because I think that this is going to be really
It's more timely.
important. Yeah, more timely. So,
Yeah.
and that one can be, it can be, moved timelines or whatever. It's
Okay.
interesting to me seeing. I always like to get the perspective of the people who speak to extraterrestrials, like the people who
Mm-hmm.
are talking to other,
Mm-hmm.
the disclosure people. I'm always interested to get their perspective because it gives you just it's a whole other. I mean, it just
Mm-hmm.
shifts everything. And um, Lisa Renee of Energetic Synthesis is one of my favorite people to go to. Really, one of the only people I go to because she's really the only person who I feel like is like sane and she breaks things down in a way that is makes sense to me. um but her newsletter this month that she sent out, yeah, it's all just, it's interesting how she puts it together because she consolidates everything. I mean, she has to be speaking to something higher because she gets every piece of information. And, I'm still putting puzzle pieces together and I'm losing things and finding new things. And it's really hard to keep track of it all, but she synthesizes it so well. And that I know that she's getting the information from not just from the media, that she's getting it from a higher source. And
Mm.
she just talks about, it's kind of like now is the time to ride the wave. And we all just got to know that we're together in this. We're all in this together. And this is like the last final push. And I hope that she's right. I hope that is true. But I've read her newsletters for a long time now, and she's been, saying that we're going into this for a long time. And
Mm.
so, yeah, it's the timeline thing. Like, it's not, this might not be, even though it feels climactic, like this is the pinnacle and
Mm-hmm.
it's just going to fall out from under us. Like, I don't think so. And when I read, the Yoga Sutras or any kind of yogic spiritual texts, and they talk about the different time cycles, and I'm realizing like we might be in for thousands more years of this. And
Mm. Oh God.
I mean, seriously, that's what I'm talking about. I'm like exit stage left, like I'm not down for being here for thousands of years. But then, these people, the rishis that wrote these things, they like lived up in the Himalayas and never saw people, because you're like, you're all are all losers. And we're just up here talking to God all the time. And so I'm very, very conscientious that may be a decision I have to make, to go like
Mm.
retreat to the mountains. And that's how my ancestors survived. That's how so many, like all of the shamanic lineages that are in the United States right now, that people are learning, all the shamanic work that people are doing, is all saved because the people who carry that tradition hid in the mountains when the conquistadors came, or when whatever people came to conquest, like they hid in the mountains. That's how you always survive. So I am like trying to get to the mountains and hide out in the
Mm.
mountains. But um yeah, I just don't know where it's going to go. I don't know where it's
Well, I
going to
think
go.
that's in terms of, choosing your timeline and choosing your resonance or whatever. I think that's one of the things about aligning with this this Trump savior narrative is not to just align and think like he's just going to save us all, but to align with the frequencies of like this is happening now and he is doing it, his people are doing it. The change is imminent. It's here, it's happening. And yeah, it's not going to necessarily be like an immediate turnaround because everything is a process. It's still a three-dimensional world. We're in the process of transition and all that, um but like we are the creators. So if we fuel our creative life force power into that narrative that this is real, this is happening now, then that creates more energy to create more reality, So there is there is that part of me that says like I think it's probably the imprinting of being a gullible child and being shamed and made fun of for believing things when I was a kid, that I'm very loath to just be like to throw all my eggs in one basket, to get really excited about something that I want to be true or, you know, don't know for sure. Um, but there's definitely, and then there's that part of me that like just wants to get swept up in like, it's amazing, it's all going to be rapid and massive transformation. And you know, and it's funny to look at that in the context of my own life experience, because I'm, you know, I have some really big changes that I've been desiring to make in my life for a long time. And this last year I've just worked and worked and worked, with myself, my healing, my journey in various ways, um, to bring myself closer to the possibility of those changes. In the meantime, changing all the while, but really feeling like I'm at that same place in myself that I'm like the microcosm is the macrocosm, right? I'm at the same place in my own life experience with like, okay, I'm super ready. Like I feel like I did enough work for me to actually like step into this new reality now. And I would really like to. And I feel like we're all there. We're like, okay, Trump, we'd really like to step into this new reality. Like right now, can we do it? You know? And it's interesting because listening to Ann Ortley's astrology podcast today, that's totally the astrology this week, right? She's like, today is the first new moon after the Star of Bethlehem, right? After the conjunction on the 21st. And so it's the beginning. Like, this is a really powerful new moon to begin, like to set your intentions for the next 2.5 years and the next 20 years. Like, what structures, like you've done all the work, it's all broken down. And now what are you building? You know? And so it's like, it's all right here. We're all totally in this space.
Yeah. The thing that, yeah, totally. The thing that I always go back to is I just have this, you know, I, I killed hope for myself a long time ago. It was something I did on purpose, because I feel like that when people rely on hope, it's a dangerous place to be in. It creates inaction in people.
Mm.
And, you know, they're just waiting for a savior. And because I've done that, I just can't go back on that. I just refuse to go back on that learning, because it was really hard for me to learn that. And I went through years of like despair learning it before I came back out, you know, a happier person. And so, you know, the thing that I always go to when I look at people who like in the Q movement who are like, you know, JFK is still alive and like things are, you know, whatever, is that no one is coming to save us. God himself is not coming down here, or herself, whatever we want to say, itself is not coming down here to save anybody. That's not how it works. We're here and we have to save ourselves. And we can do that by aligning with God or the creator. We can do that with aligning with that energy, creating our energy, but nobody is coming to save us. Trump is not going to save us. And I keep, you know, hearing these people who say, you know, they're holding on to hope, holding on to hope. It's like the last few days, it's the last few days. Something's going to happen. When's he going to drop the bomb? When's he going to drop the bomb? I fully and firmly believe that that this changeover is going to happen and that he's going to leave office. And I think that he does speak in codes. I think that there's a lot of stuff that he says that is coded in his speech, but I also don't think that he's, you know, like I just don't think that he's just going to stay in office. I don't know. I hope that that's not true, but also like that's where I have the hope, but like I just don't really believe that that is what's going to happen. And I would rather be believing that, because it leaves me more room to figure out what I'm going to do, right? To save
Mm.
myself. Like, how am I going to save myself in this situation? And I really want like people to, that's something that I really always try to instill in anybody who I'm talking to or working with, or anybody that I'm doing any kind of spiritual or healing work with, is like, you got to know that there is no healer that's going to heal you. You've got to heal yourself. And you do that by connecting to God. Like, God is the only healer, but God works through you. So there's no, you know, even people who talk to the extraterrestrials, like, there's not going to be, we can't rely on alien ships coming here and like capturing all the bad guys and putting them in alien jail. Like, that's just not, it's probably not going to happen in front of us. And if it were to happen, it probably wouldn't be something we would be able to see with our eyes, like, it's just, we can't rely on that. And if it happens, good, great, whatever, we'll deal with that when it comes. But I don't want to be relying on that somebody else is going to save me, because that puts me between a rock and a hard place. And that makes people desperate when they
Mm-hmm.
think somebody's coming to save them, when they think that God is coming to save them and God never shows up. Then it puts people between a rock and a hard place, and they get really desperate. But when you know that God works through you, and if you pray
Yeah.
that God comes to help you, that God's going to come to help you by giving you the perfect idea, or God's going to come to help you by putting the right person in your life. Like, that's how God works, not like coming down, whatever, with his scepter and banishing all the bad guys. That's not going to happen. I also, I want to believe, I don't know that I necessarily do, but I really want to, at this point in my life, believe that justice can be served in my lifetime. I do believe that justice is served throughout, like, our lifetimes with karma. I can see that the people who are leading the world right now, and people that I see every day that are really messed up in their head, I can see that they're just living out their karma of decisions that they've made, and they're living that out. But their karma also negatively impacts so many other people that it's hard for me to see how it's really, how justice is really being served. And I had the probably, I guess it was like a week ago, maybe last week, I had this whole kind of breakdown around the justice thing. I was really feeling, I was definitely in too much media, and I was really feeling thrown off balance by everything that was happening. And I thought, I had this thought that has happened. I've had this thought before, and it's something like a fire that I always need to quench, of um here I am, being a quote good person, living in the right way, like just trying to live my life and be joyous and trying to help other people to live their lives in a better way. And I have never, ever seen anything go my way as far as the bigger picture goes. Like, I'm not, why am I not somebody who's extremely wealthy? Why am I not a billionaire? Like, well, the truth is, I don't actually care about money, so I'm never going to be a billionaire. But then, it's easy to get into those mindsets of like, well, why am I not a leader? I'm a caring, kind person. Why am I not in that position? And so it's easy to get kind of like butthurt about the whole thing, and think um, that God really isn't supporting me, or that the
Mm.
universe isn't supporting me in being an upstanding person. Like, what do I get for being an upstanding person? And I was literally saying this. I was like, what do I get my whole life? Like, I've literally been a part of taking down organizations that were abusing children and gotten those organizations shut down. And I have been a whistleblower in several different ways in my life for different jobs and organizations, and got stuff that was hurting people stopped. And nothing happened. I lost my job, or, whatever it was at the time. Like, nothing good happened for me. I didn't get like a Medal of Honor or something, like nothing good happened. And as I'm saying this, I said, the only thing that I have got for myself, that I have in my life, is myself. Like, all I have is my own integrity. And, when I said it out loud, it was like, that's it. Like, that's what you get. You get yourself, you get your soul, you get your integrity, and you get, like, you're building up this wall of karma for yourself in in the next life, or whenever, whatever happens. You're just building up um like your own good name, I guess, in a way. And for me, it's about that I've never let myself down. Like, I've never betrayed myself, right? Like, I've always done what I thought was right, because ultimately I'm the person who has to look at myself in the mirror every day. And if I had betrayed myself, I would hate myself, and I would have to live with that. And that's some karma that I don't want to live with. So in going through that whole process of being butthurt about the whole thing, I realized, saying out loud, like, all I have is my own self, my own integrity, and my soul in one piece. And I mean, like, what more is there to want, like that's like more riches than anything. There's not many people I don't know that many people who I feel like have integrity, honestly. And you are among one of those people. I can't even say it about my own partner, that I feel like that he has a quality of integrity that I hold myself to. And so there's just not a lot of people I know like that. And so, you know, that's something, and that's something big. So, I'll take
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, in integrity, somebody said this to me, or maybe aware of this, that, integrity is the integration, right? You are an integrated being of soul, mind, body. And, and yeah, when you betray yourself or abandon yourself, you're severing yourself. And, so much of, the work that has been done in the last 9 months it's this, I've heard this in various circles. But it's the work is to sever people from their souls, to keep them constantly in the low vibration of fear, that they can't connect to their higher wisdom, to their higher self, to their soul. And when you become soulless, like, feel, uh yeah, you life becomes really, really bleak. um and and I mean, I don't I appreciate that you consider me to be of integrity, because I don't know where on this journey I feel like I stand. But I have betrayed myself innumerable times. I have abandoned myself so many times in my life, and what you described is exactly what it is. Just immeasurable self-loathing, and it just tears at the fibers of your very being. To And each time you betray yourself, if you don't get yourself fully back to center afterwards, it's just the betrayals become bigger and more painful, and it's harder and harder to right yourself back on course. um, which I feel like this last year has been like, fuck this, I'm done with this, like, I'm going to figure out how to get back on my own ship. um, God, really, I have to just interject here. Everybody needs to go out and read this Winter Witch series, because everything I'm saying, I'm like, and it's all just laid out in the book so perfectly. Um, anyway, and the timeline of these 3 books, with and just the messages, it's just a powerful read right now, in particular, always, I'm sure, but it really right now. But anyway, so yeah, I think about, I've actually thought this, like, I have a hard enough time some days looking myself in the mirror, like, how does Hillary Clinton sleep at night? Like, how do some of these people actually put their heads down on their pillows and rest in peace? I don't understand how a person can live with themselves once they've gotten past a certain point of soul severing, basically. Um, so,
I think adrenochrome plays a big role in it.
oh God, yeah. I don't remember where. Oh,
You remember where we're at?
yeah. I don't want to pick up there.
Yeah.
No, it was about, yeah, integrity of. Uh, okay, I'm gonna try to start this so that it's a smooth transition from where we were. So yeah, really seeing how the soul. Every time anybody says, my soul, or I have a soul, something shifted for me this past year, where I've started to. I don't know if it's because I desire to think about this differently, but I don't want to think of myself as having a soul. I mean, I've heard people say I'm not a body with a soul. I'm a soul with a body. Um, so I guess that's what it is, where I've started seeing um, seeing that more in myself, and really cultivating that perspective, I guess, in myself. Um, because I don't want to be a person who has a soul, because it's like, no, the soul is the real thing. So it's not my soul, it's me. And
Yeah.
I've been starting to see that in myself. Like, it took, God, when I think of my journey, I mean, this is our life, right? Our journeys are our life. So for me to be like, God, it was like 10 years ago. You know, it's ridiculous. But I because my practice has morphed and has been so inconsistent in so many ways. And um, I just always look back. I'm like, God, that time in my life when I was really doing it, and you know, I started meditating, and I really got to that great place, and then I just jumped ship and whatever. But I remember that first period of time in my life where I got that, where I could see like my witness, you know, I could see myself as another voice inside of myself, you know, but it was from the perspective of I'm here and I can connect to this other self or this witness perspective. Um, and what I've experienced just recently, it feels like it's the first time I've really felt that in, you know, 10 years. But that sense of like, no, I'm right here. I'm located right here. And there's a voice that speaks in me. And then there's this, which for anyone who's listening, and if we're not doing video, there's this body, you know, there's this shell experience, this physical experience that's just doing things, really. You know, in human design, um, the brain, the mind is not a motor. So no one, no one should ever make decisions from their mind,
Mm.
because the mind is not a motor. It's not a decision making place. It's good for planning and organizing and all this stuff, but it's not for making decisions. If we all just got on board with that, like, oh my God, how our lives would change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but anyway, the point of all this was about, you know, the integrity. And really, like, yes, it's the integrity, the integrating of the mind, body, soul, but really it's the recognizing that I am essence, I am soul, I am this, right? Like, isn't that God's words? I am that I am, right? That's this. I am this. I am that. I am. And then everything else is just an experience as an overlay or as a vehicle for that isness. And and so if you become severed from that isness, you essentially cease to exist. You are just a shell and can be a tool of anything. And so that is so maybe when I say, you know, I don't know how Hillary Clinton sleeps at night, she sleeps maybe because she's soulless.
Yeah.
It's not even
Totally
her
empty.
soul. It's not a tormented soul. It's a soul that's checked out. Where
Yeah.
is it? I don't know. I mean, I mean, that's just,
It's a body without the soul. Yeah.
yeah, pure speculation, you know, but just thoughts around that.
There's a lot of evidence to support it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the Yoga Sutras, there's the atom, which is that's the singular atom, which rests right here in our chest and our heart. The heart is the seat of the spirit. And then there's the sheaths that go around it. I think there's
Mm-hmm.
5 sheaths. And it's like
Yeah.
the mind is literally a bubble that we live in. Like the mind is this bubble out here. So this affirmation that I've been doing every morning in my meditations is I am not the body. I am not the blood. I am not the energy. I am not the thoughts. I am not the mind. I am not the ego. I am not the astral body. I am the immortal soul that illumines them all, remaining unchangeable in spite of their changes.
Wait,
And
say that
that
last part. I'm the immortal soul.
I am
You
the
had it cut
immortal
out.
soul. I am the immortal soul that illumines them all, remaining unchangeable in spite of their changes.
Mm.
And I've been really I've been going deep with that one. Like it's been 2 weeks that I've been doing that every morning in my meditation. And, it's interesting to me because I have spent my life getting in my body. Like I have
Mm.
always been a person who was in my mind. I'm always in school, I wasn't a good student. Like I didn't care about being there. And so I was off living in Africa in my mind, like being a park ranger or something. And so I've spent I started doing yoga when I was about 12 years old. And that really started this journey of me getting into my body. And it's funny because my most recent teacher that I've been working with, when we first started working together, she's like, you're too in your mind. You need to get in your body. You need to get in your body. Well, now I've started down the path of, well, it's been the same path, but I'm just realizing, I'm seeing how it's all lined up. But now I've taken on the lineage of Paramahansa Yogananda. And in that lineage, it's all these yogic teachings, and they're like, get out of your body, get out of your body, get out of your body. So like that is one of the affirmations that he teaches, because he's like, you are not any of this stuff, get out of your body. And so I'm like, well, I've been working my whole life to get in my body, and I was not in my body, and I've been working to get in my body. And I mean, there's some nuance to that. Like, there's this wonderful Hindu story. It's like one of their spiritual stories about this boy Shukadeva, who goes and finds a guru who is a king, and he has all these worldly riches. And he teaches Shukadeva, he tells him to go through the palace with 2 oil lamps in his hands filled with oil. And his first time he goes out, he says, you have to go out, see the whole palace, and never spill one drop of oil. And so Shukadeva goes out, and he like goes through the palace. He sees nothing because he's just focused on the oil lamps. And he comes back and he's like, well, I didn't see anything because I was focused on the oil lamps. I thought that was the thing, because you said you weren't going to be my teacher if I spilled some oil. And the king says, no, I said to see the whole palace. Now I want you to go back. I want you to see the whole palace and not spill a drop of oil. And so this next time he goes and he does it, and he says, this is your relationship to being human and your connection to God. So your connection with God is the oil lamps. You're holding the oil lamps and not spilling a drop. You're always in the nectar of God. And then the palace is the world. So you have to find a way to hold the oil lamps and never spill a drop, and see everything in the world, like be in the world, right? So there is this, that's the nuance. You have to be in the world fully, and not be of it, I guess, like that
Yeah.
saying says, but like be totally connected to God, and also see everything and be able to detail it, like really study it, like really study the world and see it. And so that's the next place I'm trying to get to, is like, how can I, because now I'm good. Like I can see the world, I can study it. Like I'm really good at the world. I've gotten really good at that in these last 38 years, but I'm not, my connection to God is spotty, like I have to go to God. Like I have to go
Mm-hmm.
to nature to be with God. I have to go to meditation, because when I'm going through the grocery store, I'm not thinking about God. um so yeah, that's that that's the next place I'm trying to get to with that.
I I think that's really the sticking point for me too, that I get my frustration with my, air quotes progress is that I have this sense or knowing in myself that I'm not going to settle for anything less than full integration with source.
Yeah.
Which is like, that might not happen in this lifetime,
Yeah.
like that probably won't, because that probably speaks to a different kind of life experience. But I could live, it's like, how close can I get? And so it's, yeah, just continuously working to shed all of the layers that are confusing my eyes around what actually is. Um, but the thing about the body, it it's got to be there. I, I've heard those kinds of teachings, and at least the teachings that I'm working with now are very much. It's not about transcending or ascending out of the body. It's very much being here in this body. Um, but maybe it's the nuance of being completely in your body, but not being your body, and not attaching to your body as any form whatsoever of who you are, no part of your identity at all, um, but just as like another reflection of who you are. You know, your body is there to give you insights and to show what your experience is in a lot of ways. Um,
Yeah, it's the vehicle that you
yeah,
get to experience this life with.
yeah,
And that might
yeah,
be a Cadillac or that might be a jalopy. And that's what we can have control over is like, are we going to be rolling in a Cadillac or a jalopy?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the whole be in the world but not of the world. I mean, this is kind of the I just love how our conversations always come full circle in so many ways, but that's kind of what I was getting at with my questions around, the timelines and what narratives are we believing, and if they're actually true, then how can we say that we're living something else, or like how do all these things simultaneously exist? And it's really, I guess, being in the world but not of the world is you can be in the world with all of that diversity of experiences and possibilities and possible timelines, but you're not of the world because you are of source. And so you are able to choose whatever your resonance is, your frequency is, and you're able to choose where your alignment is. Um, and I guess, I mean, that's kind of like one of those conversations where I'll get to that place and be like, what's the point of talking about anything? Because at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like it all just comes back to that. Like, I don't need to mind myself with anything. Like, I just need to focus on my energy, what I'm taking in, what I'm putting out, what I'm creating, and the energy of my space and the energy of my interactions. And, you know,
Yeah. That's another one of the thing I read this last night. I was reading the Yoga Sutras and one of them it says something to that effect of like, or something that makes me think of that is it says basically um anything, I mean essentially what it's saying is anything that feels good is God. And anything that feels bad is poison. And you should stay away from the poison. You should consider it a poison. And so, like, I mean, that's really condensing it down, but that's essentially, that's what it says. And I've been thinking about that because I was so wrapped up in the media stuff, right? Like, and
mm-hmm,
that is one of my things is that I get fascinated. I love a good soap opera. And when the whole world is a soap opera, it is hard for me to not get involved. And like I grew up in the Jerry Springer era, and it used to be you go to watch Jerry Springer. Now Jerry Springer's everywhere. So it's really interesting for me. And so I have to, but it'll really quickly take me down, like
yeah,
I can see a little bit of it and that's good. And I need to process it and figure out what I'm going to do with it, but I can't just stay in it. And a few days ago, it was a whole day of just like researching and all this stuff. And I was so in it that I didn't see myself going down. And then I read that and it was like, yeah, that's the thing. That's how I need to look at it. And then it also says in there, it is also your responsibility to be basically to be educated on what's happening in the world. Like it's your
mm-hmm,
responsibility to see it. It's not about avoiding it necessarily, like not thinking like, some people are just avoidant of it. So it's not really about necessarily avoiding it. It's really about not taking it into your energy field and like, avoiding it in that way, like turning away from it. And so I've been really, yeah, thinking about that. And the last couple of days I've been trying to be more aware when I am researching or reading a news article or whatever, of being aware of like, okay, checking in on my mental status. Like, am I still in my own vibration? Am I still feeling good? Or am I starting to go down, and like making sure to get out of it before I start getting too obsessed with it. And yeah, it's really important for me to not get too obsessed with it. Um, yeah, and it's interesting to be living in a place where and it's funny because these people keep calling, like Trump keeps calling these people bad actors, bad actors. And, you know, so many people read between the
Mm.
lines of what he's saying. And I think this is the one thing that everybody's just repeating and nobody's analyzing it. Like, he was on a reality TV show that we know was all fake. Like, is this all just, I mean, it is. It's just all fake. It's all just a stage performance, you know, like when everybody went on to the news after the insurrection or whatever, you know, went on the news, and like this Alexandra Octavio Cortez, whatever AOC they call her, whatever her name is, literally is on the news, and she's like, the half of the government almost died today or yesterday. Is like, no, you didn't. Like, nobody was actually, none of those people had weapons. Like, the police had the weapons. Like, none of those people had weapons, and like, you all were out of there before they even got in there. Like, no, you didn't. But it's so dramatic, you know, like, he
Mm-hmm.
must be out of here, half of the people almost died. Is like, oh my god, you know, drama queen. So it's, you know, it's not lost on me that this is all very theatrical. um you know, and if all the world is a stage, you know, like,
And all the men and women are players.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's just, and I mean, really, this was all set up. I watched like 2 episodes of House of Cards with my mom, like years ago, whenever it was first on. And I was like, this is too real. Like, I know this is what's happening, you know? And now I'm like, yeah, this is totally, that show is based on reality. But I've also come to the conclusion this year that everything is real. 100% of everything, it's all real. And just when I come at things from that perspective, like, it's just all real. Either it's real in somebody's mind, which just shows you
Mm-hmm.
how disgusting people are, or it's actually happening in the world, which is like a whole other level of disgusting. Like, it's all real in it exists. It's like here in somebody's thoughts or in the
Yeah.
actual world out in front of us. So I'm just going to assume that everything is real.
That was actually another helpful um, lesson from the Winter Witch series as well, was just believe everything, right? I think
Yeah.
that was one of the things. Just believe everything. Not being duped by it, but just like um it's like all possibilities, I guess. Everything exists. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it goes along with what you're saying about timelines. Like, it's all happening somewhere. You know, it's all happening
Yeah.
somewhere, either in this timeline that you're creating in your mind, or in the reality that everybody is seeing, or, you know, whatever the other realities that other people are creating. I mean, they are the government. These people who are elected to be the government are, they are spinning, or they're creating a reality, you know, they're spinning a reality that they, it's interesting to me, it's so obvious that they are not impacted by this in their daily lives. They are so out of touch with the common folk, because if they, like, they can't actually be enjoying themselves, can they? Like, are they enjoying all of this? Like, they're obviously not. You know, I don't know. I'm wondering how many of them are up like sleepless nights, just like stressing, like, oh, the American people. Oh, like, I really just think they're plotting and planning. Like, how is this going to look? Like, am I going to look bad tomorrow? Like, I don't want to look bad. And we want to make sure he looks bad and not me. So let's spin this whole thing so they looks bad. Like, I don't actually think they're like all narcissists. Like, I don't think they actually care about anybody, you know? And I mean, that's what the survivors of the satanic ritual abuse, that's what they say. They're like, all of these people, when you get to a high enough level where you're, you know, in public view, and you're somebody that people go to, like, you already are in the cult. Like, you've sold your soul and you've been bought by somebody. And I mean, we know that, like, lobbyists and all that stuff on like a lower level, it's like people from corporations are buying you. But then we realize that's not even the most disgusting thing. Like, they're bought on so many other levels. I mean, right now we're literally seeing our country has been sold to China essentially. And yeah, like, we mean nothing. So I'm just so surprised, like, especially liberal people. I've spoken to so many people, liberal people in my life, that are like, yeah, fuck the government, like, down with the system. And now everybody, all these same people are all of a sudden like, oh, but the government's going to take care of us. And oh, just listen to only the mainstream media, like only listen to reliable sources, like fact checkers. Like, you did not believe any of this shit like 6, 8 months ago, a year ago. And now you're telling me that I'm crazy and that I should just believe the government, trust that the government wants my best interest. Like, no, nothing about me has changed. We were talking about this the other day. Is like all those people were just posers. Like, they're all just posers. Like, nothing about my ideology has actually changed. Like, I mean, I've gone through an evolution, but my ideology, like my view of the world is the same, like freedom. Like, I want independence. I want to be able to have control over my own life. And I want to be separate from any kind of governing body as much as I can. Like, that's what I've been on, the path I've been on my whole life. And so this has only made it more, pronounced. Like, it hasn't changed that at all. And so I'm so shocked that people are just like totally bought into it. And, it's very weird.
It is very weird. It's weird on so many levels. But I guess, it just keeps coming back to fear. It's the weapon of fear. Because, maybe they weren't posers, but maybe they're easily afraid.
Yeah.
Because it just it makes no sense. It's completely nonsensical. The number of people who it's too bad you can't do a survey and really figure out, like, I believe and kowtow to this 100%. I don't believe it, but I'm scared shitless. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to do whatever they say. It's like, these are the options, or like, this is all completely bogus. F all of this. It's like, or like, I don't believe any of this, but I'm going to wear a mask because I need to be able to run my business. I don't believe any of this, but I'm good. Just to get a feel for like, what is the actual spread here? Because that not everybody is, nothing is what it seems, right? I mean,
Right.
Isn't that the lesson of this year? I mean, who knows what's, with the Q and Trump and who knows? I mean, I've been watching videos where the guy's like, I just spoke to Q. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
You spoke to the Q? He's like, there's several Qs, but the Q is a real person. Nobody ever sees him. I just spoke to him. Like, okay, so maybe that's legit. Maybe that's real.
But then that gets into the position where it's like, I've got the drug and you need to come to me because I'm the drug dealer with the only drug. Like, that's how I feel about the whole Q thing. It's like, people are like, I've got the drop. I've got the drop. Only I know this. And so you got to come to me for the information. That's like, that always sits wrong with me, because I'm
Yeah.
like, no, if it's not, that's not really how it works. Like, whenever we know this from different energies coming into this world, that simultaneously people are getting the same downloads, right? Around the world, we're all getting the same upgrade, whether we know it or not. We're getting the same upgrades at whatever level we're at. So it's like, it just doesn't sit well with me that, it's just like when the Wright brothers, when they took off in the plane, like, everybody thinks, oh yeah, like they came up and they invented the plane and they like took off and they were first people to fly. But what people don't know is there were like 20 other dudes doing the same thing all over the world at the same time, and they were all in competition with each other to who, and they got off the ground by like, 30 minutes over some guy in France or whatever it was. I don't really remember, but
well, it's like Tesla and Edison.
yeah, like, it's all happening simultaneously. There's no way, it's just, I mean, and you're not some guy on fucking YouTube talking about like, Q just came to you, the only YouTuber who's talking about this. He came to you. Like, well, who are you? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So that's where the Q thing gets me, like, and I know that there are definitely people faking it and whatever. There's always going to be like the fake cat burglar or whatever, what do they call it, the copycat killers or whatever they are, like they come in after somebody and do the same thing. And yeah, which is why discernment and critical thinking are really important, which is unfortunately something that's been bred out of this society in this country for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's where you really start to see like the long con here, because the strategic removal of freedom starting back in March or whenever it was, that's been very obvious. But, then you go back like we were talking about
It's
to
been happening
9/11.
for a long
Yeah.
ass time, like
But then
hundreds,
it's just the
maybe
strategic.
thousands.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thousands.
Yeah, like who knows how long. Like there's so
Yeah.
many, I was just watching this. There's a second Follow the Cabal, and she's like taking
Hmm.
it
Oh my
way, way
God.
back, and it's just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
but that's the thing is like, and I learned this through working with this organization I worked with a long time ago, and they were all about strategy and history. And what we know is that revolutions actually take place over generations. So you train your kids to be revolutionary, and that's how revolutions take place. And that's what the elite have done is
Hmm.
they train their children, you're going to be the next leader, and so you're indoctrinated into this system of leadership. And so and so people think like, oh, but nobody has this evil intentions. Just because you don't have evil intentions doesn't mean somebody else doesn't, especially an elite family that's like super power hungry and like wants to control the world and eat your babies. Like, they have a long-term plan. And people are not trained in strategy. So people don't know about strategy. They don't know about playing the long game versus the short game. So like, most ordinary people have not been trained in these strategies. These are military strategies. These are abuser strategies. These are like, very well developed strategies. And I only know of them because, of working with this organization that researched them and like reading history books. Like you read history and you see that's why history repeats itself, because the same wars are won in the same way over and over. There's different weapons or different, it looks different, but they're all won in the same way. And it's, the strategy, there's a winning strategy. And, like I always talk about Native Americans, people think, I used to get into this all the time with activists who would be like, well, Native Americans have just given up. Like they're just all, just going to roll over and die, and they're not going to fight for the country or whatever. But what they don't understand is most indigenous people, at least like the elders, they're playing the long game. So like I was told by an elder, he said that his elder told him, don't worry about the white people because one day we'll have their children, and he's like, look, I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. I'm a mixed blood. So like, this is what he meant, they're in it for the long game. So most people were used to like microwave meals. So nobody understands like you can wait for generations to make something happen, And
Hmm.
if you really want to see that in action, just start researching the Khazars and or the Khazarians, whatever they're called, and just all what they've done. And basically, yeah, they're the elite ruling families and how long they've been at that game. And yeah, so people do it. It's just that they purposely trained regular people not to do it. They've trained us to think that we are living from paycheck to paycheck and to only worry about what's right in front of us, because they don't want us to have a strategy, a revolutionary strategy of like taking over the world one generation at a time. They want us to be thinking about tomorrow and tomorrow only.
Well, but that's also interesting. Like you said, the microwaving food, it never occurred to me in this context, but that modern conveniences are actually, if you were to look at it through this lens, modern conveniences are actually um, tools of the structure of the system to keep people dependent and less active, less able to do things for themselves, which is interesting because there's such a revival now of primitive skills
Yeah.
and back to the landers and people learning how to regenerate soil. Like there's a farm here that's all about, regeneration um, and, you know, p- learning how to do things yourself, learning how to do things by hand would make sense that we're also pushing the white collar versus the blue collar, intellectual work versus skilled work, so that people become less and less capable actually to manage their own lives in a functional way to keep themselves alive. Most people could not actually keep themselves alive
No.
without any of the trappings of society.
And that's why people freak out about freaking toilet paper and go buy
Right.
all the it's like the end of the world is coming and all of you think of is fucking toilet paper. Like seriously, are you
Uh,
going to eat that toilet paper? God, I can't help you. I cannot help you.
it is so interesting though, because having uh, sort of in my own way gone through that experience recently. Well, because I have, I have uh, my freezer full of meat and put up food from the summer, and I've got a root cellar, and I'm set. I've got all my food for the next. Well, I think my freezer died, but it's cold enough that it's keeping everything frozen, and there's enough frozen stuff in there. So in theory, I've got enough food for the next like year, probably actually, um, or at least enough meat for the next year. But uh, so I was like, well, I've got everything I need except that I will have to leave my house because I don't have toilet paper. So I get it. It's like you got to have all your bases covered.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to do the family cloth.
Oh yeah. I
It's
mean,
just
yeah,
one
you're
of those
like
things.
it's like going back to doing cloth diapers, it's like the
Yeah,
same.
I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the same thing. But I've got a system down where it's like no contact and it works out. But yeah. There is also on the toilet paper note, there's a great toilet paper company I used to buy toilet paper from before they sold out, but now they have more, called What the Crap. And all the toilet paper rolls come with like these funny, they put jokes all over them. So it's really delightful to have them in your bathroom.
Like on the roll itself that you wipe
Not
with.
on the toilet paper itself, but on the
Oh,
packaging, because they
the
come in
packaging.
paper. They are zero waste or whatever, or low waste, so they're all in paper wrap. They're like wrapped in paper or whatever, and they all have like jokes and stuff. So that's an avenue for
Okay.
those of you who want good shipped toilet paper that's made out of bamboo.
Ah, okay. Noted.
Well, and on that note,
Yeah, on that note, that's what I
I
was
think
thinking.
we'll end that at the ass end. Um, this has been a great episode with you as always. And
Yeah, likewise.
yeah, so for all the listeners out there, thanks for listening, and make sure you tell everybody about our uncensored conversations.